Every high school has one. She's the girl we whispered about, who supposedly did all of those things. She was the one with the bad reputation, the one who was labeled the slut. She would go on to claim mythical status, and even after all of these years, we still remember her name. But where is she now? How would she remember high school?
Hi, I'm calling to respond to your ad about the documentary on the myth of the teenage slut. Well, I myself wasn't a slut in high school, but a lot of people thought I was, which was kind of ironic considering the fact that I was still a virgin.
Calling someone a slut, it kind of breaks them. When I got labeled as a slut, I'd never even kissed anyone before in my life. I hadn't even done anything. Sex was still really confusing to me. Like, I was 13 when I started getting rumors, like when people started telling rumors about me, and I didn't really understand it at all. It kind of went from me being innocent in the whole deal and kind of being like the victim of rumors to actually creating that persona in myself, and that's when things got really bad.
He's a little slut, actually.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're promiscuous.
Oh, I know, it's okay. You can be whoever you want.
It's me and my son when he was 5 months old. I went to a new school for grade 7, and they decided to pick on me. They just started calling me a slut, and then when they realized it bothered me, they called me it more, and I was very shy, and I lived in a group home, which didn't help my reputation at all because, oh, she lives in a group home, well then there's got to be something wrong with her. And it was weird, they would all call me a slut, and then I'd go home to my group home, and I'd be the only girl there that never had sex or even kissed a guy, and so they would pick on me for being a prude. And then at school, I'd get picked on for being a slut. So it was really weird. It was a really weird environment that I grew up. One minute I'm a prude, next minute I'm a slut. Like, I was never sure where I was. I was more of a prude now that I look back on it.
People looked at me like I was less than them, a lot less. I don't think anyone deserves to be called a slut. Well, the way that I got my reputation was because I just dated a lot of people very frequently, and they all assumed that I was a slut, and that was easy. I just dated a lot. I mean, I was going out with a lot of guys, so it was easy for them to assume, like, they don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So they let their minds wander and they think what they want to think. I got the vibe, essentially, and I could tell just by the way people were looking at me, and I could hear people talking about me, and I've had a few people tell it to me to my face. It was just basically a bunch of name-calling, and a lot of people stopped hanging out with me. It kind of made me feel worthless and, like, horrible. Why bother with things like my marks weren't that great after I was being labeled this?
Good grades, teachers think you're fine, which I think is a mistake, because some of the overachievers are the ones who are having the most troubles. I was the one who started, like, after the first time I had sex with a guy, when I was 11, I was the one who came back to school and said, hey, I just had sex with this guy, la la la, never thinking that it would spread like wildfire, and by the afternoon his girlfriend would be coming to get me and beat me up after school. And by Friday, it was the biggest. Like, I got surrounded by 7 girls, and they were burning my jacket, and they, like, tripped me off a curb. I got kicked in the jaw. It was awful, like the worst beat up I ever had.
Dear Dan, I'm writing you this because I'm having a problem at school. Everyone keeps calling me a slut, but I haven't even kissed anyone yet.
I hear mostly a lot from young people. You know, people whose genitals are just kicking into high gear are likelier to be confused and need advice and reach out for advice. So I hear from a lot of teenagers and younger. And, you know, I get letters from 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds that are wondering about things that I didn't wonder about till I was 28.
Have you heard that Jeannie Talon did a teacher? No, seriously, it's true.
The reality is high school is horrifying and kids are cruel and hierarchies are going to emerge. It's horrifying. What can you do for the 14-year-old girl in her high school who's been labeled a slut? Nothing. That's part of the sort of torment of it. It's almost as if anything adults step in to try to do to make it better is only going to make it worse.
When I was 14 years old, I became known as the school slut. I went out on a date with a guy whom my girlfriend had her eye on. And in my defense, all I can say is that I was 14 years old, and when you're 14, you do selfish, foolish things like this. Well, the guy wanted to make out with me. So we went to his apartment, his parents weren't there, and we fooled around. He was not exactly a gentleman about it. As soon as the date was over, he called my girlfriend and told her what happened. She was so angry with me that she decided to go to school the next day and tell everybody what I had done, and she embellished the story. Within a matter of hours, people were coming up to me, calling me slut, calling me bitch, and whispering behind my back. This harassment, it persisted for 3.5 years.
Hey, that was good.
Well, I got the reputation without doing anything. Margaret is a slut. I was very lonely. I was always alone. Well, in the spring of 1940, my mother died, and that was when war was starting, and I had one brother. So once the summer holidays came, my father found an apartment in Kitsilano area of Vancouver. So that meant going to Kitsilano High School.
Popularity. What is it people like one person and not another?
They were all set up. I mean, they'd been going to school with people for 12 years, and they didn't need a newcomer. I'd made the mistake of going to a party I was invited to, and there was a little porch off the room where the dancing was going on, and someone said someone wanted me out on the porch, so I went out on the porch and just got sort of sexual, standing up and hanging on to me for dear life, and I couldn't get away till he was finished, and then I ran home. I wondered if there was a sign in the bathroom wall in the boys' room.
That would have said what?
Margaret is a slut.
When I became 17, I had lost my virginity, and it was great. I had a good first experience, and then I just became very, very promiscuous, and ultimately had sex with thousands of people in all different kinds of ways. I admired the bad girls in high school.
It's just a 4-letter word, but to be labeled a slut can change your high school career, if not your whole life. Can we even define what a slut is? Is it a word to keep high school girls in check? To prevent them from going too far? Or does it define a woman who feels comfortable expressing her sexual identity?
I was really super shy as a teenager and very afraid of sex, but my first experience was so good and so liberating that I just wanted to learn more about sex. I have a slut collection. You won't see that on the Home Shopping Club, though. Well, there's a kind of classic slut, which is just a very lusty, available, sexually open, juicy woman. And there are certain garments and types of makeup. They're kind of a stereotypical slut. Blue eyeshadow, lots of rouge, red lips, garter belts, stockings, high heels, Playboy bunnies, porn stars, pinup models. These are kind of the classic sluts. However, in some cases, you could just not be a virgin on your wedding night and you're considered a slut.
I didn't know what a slut was. I knew it must be somebody that's sexually promiscuous, but I completely wasn't, and so I always thought it must be me. I must act a certain way. I must flirt with guys, and I don't even know it.
I think it's like, I don't even know. If I were to make up a definition for slut, I wouldn't even know what to say, how to define it.
Girls who either are very sexually active or they are perceived to be more sexually active than their peers are. So that could be a girl who has never had sex. She may never have even kissed a boy, but people think she's very sexually active. A girl who is just considered an outsider for whatever reason. It could be a girl who's new in school. She could be an early developer, somebody who gives off a sexual impression. So if, everybody else in school is still in their, A-cup bra, and there's one girl in 7th grade who's wearing a C-cup, God help her, because people are going to assume that she's sexually active. A girl who is really, really pretty is often a target of jealousy, by other girls especially, and it works.
I felt always like there was something wrong with me. I was afraid to show myself. My mom was very sort of sensuous and sexually expressive, and that's, she was like a 50s bombshell Marilyn Monroe type of woman, and she was actually quite noticeable. And I partly picked up a lot of her mannerisms. I wasn't aware of what I was projecting. And I remember being at my locker and noticing some guys talking about me across the hall, and I walked down the hall and they said things behind my back. I felt very isolated. And that's one of the things that the dysfunctional way I continued on in my life was to feel this isolation.
The most disturbing of all is a girl who's been raped or who has been involved in a sexually coercive encounter, and those stories are really, really heartbreaking.
I was sexually attractive at a fairly young age. My body was the focus of attack and stigmatization. When I was 11 years of age, I was sexually assaulted, and I was sexually assaulted by a boy who was quite a bit older than me, and it was a horrible experience. This was a guy whose mother drove me to church on Sundays. He asked me if I wanted to go for a bike ride with him, and I was kind of excited and delighted, and then he assaulted me. And then when it was over, he said, "Michelle, I didn't know you were that kind of girl." Sometime later, I would say probably about a year later, with my girlfriend, I found that underneath this huge bridge that we were canoeing, and we got out of the canoe and spent some time under this bridge with these big rocks and boulders, I found graffiti about myself, she and I found, that said, for good fuck, call Michelle Dora, my phone number. I wanted to die. That's how bad it was.